Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this morning's Executive Policy Committee meeting for November 13th, 2024. We're gathered here on Treaty 1 territory, traditional homeland of the Red River Métis, and our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 in Treaty 3 territory. And joined today on Executive Policy Committee by Councillors Santos, Rollins, Lukes, Duncan, and Brawadi, and our CEO, Mr. Sherwood Armbruster, our clerk, members of our staff as well, and it's Bruce Springsteen Day today, but here we are. Anyways, need to begin today with a motion to receive the minutes of the previous minute. Councillor Lukes, thank you. All in favor, aye. Opposed, carried. Okay, the first item up is a public hearing. I'm going to turn it over to our clerk and just ask her to kind of give some explanation. We're ultimately going to kind of lay this matter over, but go ahead, sure. Madam Clerk.
In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, the process the committee will follow is the applicant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the application. Next, those registered in opposition are heard, followed by those registered for information. Finally, the applicant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made. However, no new information is permitted. For a more in-depth overview of the public hearing process and other information pertaining to what happens before, during, and after public hearing, please consult the City Clerk's Department website. So item 1 is a secondary plan amendment at 474 and 494 Panet Road under file SPA 5 of 2024. This is a combined hearing and the following items will also be considered, namely item 2, which is a subdivision and rezoning at 474 and 494 Panet Road under file DAS 31 of 2024, and a variance at 474 and 494 Panet Road under file DAV 160322 of 2024D.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Go ahead. Yes, Councillor Brawadi.
On the secondary plan, item number 1, I move that the public hearing be adjourned to the December 4th, 2024 meeting of the Executive Policy Committee at 510 Main Street in the Council Chamber.
Okay, that would also include items 2 and 3, right, Madam Clerk?
On the DAZ, I move. Do I do
Okay, so one at a time. Okay, all right. Then the motion on item 1, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you.
On number 2, the DAZ, I move that the public hearing be adjourned to the December 4th, 2024 meeting of the Executive Policy Committee at 510 Main Street in the Council Chamber.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
On number 3, the variance, I move that the public hearing be adjourned to the December 4th, 2024 meeting of the Executive Policy Committee at 510 Main Street in the Council Chamber due to a required reposting of the public hearing notice.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Madam Clerk, any final comments?
Suspension.
Okay.
Yes.
I'd like to move suspension of the rules for the addendum reports, those being the SPC on Public Works, the SPC on Property and Development, and Governance Committee.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we are now into the delegations portion of the meeting. And our first delegation today is Councillor Gilroy from the Daniel McIntyre Ward to be heard with respect to item 6 of the report of the Standing Policy Committee on Community Services and item 2 of the report of the Standing Policy Committee on Public Works and item 14 of the Executive Policy Committee agenda.
Yeah,
Good morning, Councillor Gilroy.
Sorry, Madam Clerk. Just have this.
Oh, I can come around.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I do got lots on the agenda, so I really hope that I can get it all in, and if not, if maybe you can grace me with a few more minutes. So the first item up is the item on the EPC agenda, which is really looking at a tri-level agreement, kind of like something that we had in the 80s and 90s, the Core Area Initiative, that really looked at investment into disadvantaged areas. And so the idea of this is improving the physical, social, and economic barriers within disadvantaged areas that will strengthen economic growth for the entire city and align with Council's strategic policies and action plans. And these objectives would be to propose a targeted strategy for economic, physical, and social improvements in the disadvantaged neighborhoods with the goal of enhancing citywide economic health, community stability, and quality of life. So I think I had a really good meeting with the mayor on Friday, Councillor Edie and I think there's still some work that we're going to do surrounding this. It's my understanding that we're going to maybe you'll receive this as information, and the mayor and I will continue to work on this because I do think it's important. There's a lot of funding, I think, that we require from other levels of government to help us do some of the work within some of these communities, and I'm going to be talking about that a little bit later on in my delegation here. But so I look forward to continuing with you, Mr. Mayor, and seeing what we can do. I know that this is kind of a big ask, so I understand if we're receiving this as information today, but we'll continue to try to find an outcome that works maybe for both of us. So, but my goal is to hopefully get some improvements in some of these communities that we're desperately needing. Okay. The second item I wanted to talk about is my proactive cleanup of needles and debris in parks. And Madam Clerk, I think I gave you some handouts for everybody, so I'd like you to maybe take a look at the handouts. I apologize, I wasn't able to be at Community Services for this discussion. I was away, so I think maybe that impacted the vote, and really not understanding and grasping what I'm asking for here. And I really was disappointed with the report that came out, and I think that that's something I do want to flag for our CAO. I mean, when we put together a motion and council approves a motion, we really have to make sure through agenda management that our staff are following through on what we're asking. So that was a huge concern for me. But I guess the best option here is maybe to send this back to Community Services. I'm now on Community Services. This would be one of those tri-level asks. But as you can see, they talked about just about requesting that needle exchange program within the city of Winnipeg be encouraged to value being placed on used needles. Well, that's not what I'm asking for here. I clearly have shown you in the photos that are here, there's a knife. This is Furby Street Park. There's a knife in a kid's park. It's a tot lot. There is a glass bottle. This glass bottle was the bottom of the slide where a child would slide down. Broken glass and a used condom, all in an area where kids are at play. So we as a city are responsible for this, and I really want to make sure that we're finding a way forward for this. I was hoping for a robust report that would have us looking at maybe other organizations that could be helping us do that, but I got what was given was a report on the costing. So now I'm going to have to go and ask council for more money to get this work done. So having said this, I'm not happy with the outcome at Parks and Community Services. I'd like that to go back for further dialogue and hope that my council colleagues will support me on this. Or you can look at the funding request from the funding request that the administration put forward and put it onto the budget working group. But just saying no, that we're not going to be responsible for cleaning up parks where kids need to be playing, especially within the inner city, where a lot of them are living in apartments, is just not right. So that's what I'm asking. And on the third item that I wanted to talk about was my motion I worked with the community on this motion. This wasn't just mine. And it was about the Winnipeg Transit Plus. And I think we're all here because we want to make improvements. That's my goal as a city councillor, is to try to find the gaps and the barriers that we have and make better policy that make improvements to help to improve the services here in Winnipeg. And that's one of our core policies, and I know that's something that Councillor Lukes actually talked a lot about, is to improve our core services, right? And so when I found out that our Winnipeg Transit Policy eligibility criteria was very, very old, they've said they've been working on it for years, but it's been years in the making. And when I found out that we lost a whole bunch of occupational therapists because they didn't feel right about the ethics that they were asking, that Transit Plus policy was asking, I was very, very concerned. So we have community members that are coming and saying that they're needing a type of service from Transit Plus, and they're not able to get it. And occupational therapists at the same time are leaving the city of Winnipeg because they're not feeling comfortable with what we're asking them to do under our own policy. So I think we need to review that policy. So that's what I said out here. Not only do I want to review the policy, and then the administration says, well, we're doing that. Well, they've been doing that for years. But I want them to review it working with the community groups that are using Transit Plus daily. I don't know what it's like to use Transit Plus. I don't have a physical disability that limits me, but I want to make, and I think a lot of our staff don't either. So I think we really need to utilize the people that are using that service so we can really identify the needs and eligibility criteria. And I think we got to make sure that when we do have a policy that comes forward, that it's really going to look at the ethical standards at which doctors have to follow, and with occupational therapists. Those are the people that we use to help diagnose and figure out the services that they require under Transit Plus. So we have a lot of work to do here, and I think there's some confusion on what to do with this one. But I guess my goal is, and I don't know where the best place is, my goal is to have community really be a part of building a new policy, the eligibility criteria. So I think that Councillor Lukes was away when the vote happened. She knows the background of what kind of went on here a little bit more, was more familiar than what maybe the councillor colleagues at the table were making that decision on. And so I guess either send it back to Public Works for greater discussion. Our idea was to really move it to the Human Rights Committee, because I felt the Human Rights Committee is, from my understanding, all of our committees, our citizen committees, are kind of the conduit to council that really can provide us feedback, and they don't make the decisions, but they can, really provide us feedback on some of our policies. So that is an area which I would be interested in that going, because there is an Access Advisory Committee too. But at the end of the day, this isn't rocket science. I don't care which committee. I just really want the community to be engaged and involved. So how do I make that work? I'll leave that up to you, whether this is best to go back to Public Works for further discussion, and maybe Councillor Lukes can work with the community on how best to address this. I'm fine with that, but the status quo I'm not fine with. So I'd like to see some changes, and I'd like to ensure that our public service is doing kind of what we're requesting, and to have them really work with the community on coming up with a really good eligibility criteria, and really find out and deep dive into like what's going on with our occupational therapists. Now I hear we're outsourcing it. Like, why is that? Is that the best practice? We need to really understand those things to ensure that we're having a really healthy, good, robust Transit Plus service. So I want to take a deeper dive, so that's what I'm asking for. And yeah, open to any questions. And I did do it under 10 minutes.
Well done, you covered a lot of territory. Couple questions. First of all, not a question, but I will say yes, on the tri-level funding matter, absolutely, you've got my commitment to continue to work together. One of my staff members is going to be assisting as well, and we'll support the work that we're going to do collectively. So thank you for raising that, and appreciate the objectives you've laid out here. Absolutely makes sense. So thank you for your initiative. Looking forward to working with you on that. Question, though, related, just so I'm clear, on the needle and weapon debris,
Yeah.
you'd like that to go back? I mean, the report talks about potential option 1 or 2 costing, but I'm just wondering specifically, why do you want that to go back to committee? Is that to look at, for example, other options as well, as far as nonprofit agencies participate? I'm just wondering what you hope would come out of sending it back to standing committee.
Well, I guess because I'm on the Standing Policy Committee now, so I could ask a lot more questions maybe. But at the end of the day, it's going to require, I think, additional funding, unless we're going to be asking other places to step in. I was looking at and those are things I can raise with the park staff. I don't need it to do it here, but their park makeup, like the needles, the weapons that I found in this park here, the things that I was concerned with, wasn't even on the park list. Right? So I'd like to understand a little bit more their data and where they're getting that from. Like, And I think that the challenge I have in some areas, like I do audits in my communities, and I have to spend a lot more time in Spence because people do not call that in. If I'm in Wolseley, people are calling it in, right? So really, there's unique areas in the community where there needs to be a higher level of presence, where we don't have people calling it in. So I guess there's questions around that, but at the end of the day, we need money. So send it to the budget working group and let's have the debate.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions? Okay, Councillors Lukes, then Rollins.
Okay, two questions. One on the Needles program.
Yeah.
So I guess it's Shared Health that hands out the needles ultimately? Is that the one that hands out the needles, then goes down to different groups that hand out needles?
Yeah, it's Street Connections, but they're through Shared Health through
Right.
Winnipeg.
So have you talked to anyone from the province at all about this?
Here's the thing, it's not just about needles, right? Like I gave you the pictures, right?
Okay, so let's start with needles. We'll start
Okay.
with needles.
I haven't. I haven't had those discussions. That's, through you, the mayor's the person that needs to have those discussions. That's why I kind of thought about a tri-level agreement that would be an umbrella, kind of looking at all these things that we're seeing and trying to manage it and piece it together. And hopefully we can work through that, but that would be the mayor that would have to have those discussions with higher levels of government on.
So, I mean, I go to a lot of events, you go to a lot of events, we sit with our MLAs of the area, right?
Absolutely. I talk with my MLAs all the time
Right,
on this
and
stuff.
I
yeah.
mean, I think of all the MLAs, your MLAs would be pretty in tune with this scenario
Yeah.
that's happening, right?
100%. But the needles actually have gotten better. To be honest with you, it's the other stuff, right? The needles, I find they have done a bit better job at picking up needles since I've brought this up. They've done a little bit more work.
Who's they? Who's,
The Needle Exchange, I think there's community groups, there's many different groups working in this area as well. That's why I wanted the public service to really kind of coordinate things. So it's for me, I'm seeing a lot more of the things like broken glass, garbage and debris, knives, weapons, like those kind of things than I am needles.
so with all these.
There's still needles, I'm
Right,
not saying
right,
that,
right.
but there's other things in that park that I think we're responsible for.
So have you sat down with all these other groups, like the Bear Clan 204, with all these groups? Have you had a meeting with them to figure?
I meet with them, yeah, I do meet with them, yeah. And they're all volunteer-based though, like,
Right.
right? We're asking volunteers
Right.
to do the job that I think we should be doing. So
Right, but they get funding to do something.
some of them do and some of them don't. Some of them have no funding,
Right, right.
right? Like 204, I don't think has any government funding. It's
Okay.
all volunteers donating their money and donating their time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then my other question is related to Transit Plus, right?
Sure,
So,
yeah.
so yes, I've heard reports that there's been an exodus of staff. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that report, you've heard that too. And, at the committee, we had Councillor Chambers, who was the chair of the Human Rights Committee. My understanding from him and from speaking with Councillor Rollins, who's also on the committee, is the Human Rights Committee doesn't do investigations, right? They're not an investigative group. That's not their mandate. But it really sounds like there is some sort of HR drama that needs to be addressed, maybe, I'm not sure. So I think what we'd like to do is to ask the CAO to maybe, investigate a little further, make some calls, because we can't delve into HR issues. And even the Human Rights Committee, if they could, they couldn't delve into HR issues. Have you had the opportunity to talk to Teresa Platt from Transit about this?
No, just what I've heard. And you know what? I think that I want to be cautious. I'm not asking, I don't want the human rights to deal with any kind of HR issues or whatever. What I want is that when we have a new policy coming forward, right, just like we do when we had our Winnipeg or any other major policies, we consult with the community.
Right.
And I think what I'm hearing from the community is they'd like a mediator to do that work. They want to ensure that the work is being done.
Sure.
And maybe if there's somebody else sitting at the table, it's, that they're listening to what they have to say, the staff has to say, listening to what the community has to say, and making sure that they're bridging those gaps. So that's where the human rights, because they have a committee on there
Right.
that deals with kind of mobility issues. It's like the old Access Advisory. It was a good fit.
Right.
Right? So no, I'm not asking for the Human Rights Committee to take on a big report. That's not their job or their role.
Right.
But they are a conduit. They are a citizen body, they're citizen members, and they do have a voice on human rights issues.
So we have the Transit Plus Advisory Committee, right, that I've attended various meetings on.
Yep.
Do you think that that would be an avenue that it could be brought up and addressed at, as policies are developed, like exactly like you say, getting input from the community?
Yeah, sure.
Do you think that would be a good avenue?
Yep. And I also think that it would be a good thing that our citizen bodies do see at the end of the day, that we do show that they are active, engaging in some of these policies we're putting forward. So that could be an avenue that Human Rights Committee still could do. Yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Rollins?
Appreciate the discussion. If I may, Councillors Gilroy and Councillors Luke, 5 seconds before I got the chair role from the mayor, came to me with, a bit of a work plan, if I may call it a bit of work plan. The Human Rights Committee of Council is to provide that public perspective and advisement to mayor and council, and have the values to ensure the efforts are improving human rights at the City of Winnipeg. Without, you've talked about the creation of a net new policy, and certainly this motion I see speaks to that, and a report that is in line with the plans of the Public Works Standing Policy Committee. It's Councillor Luke's job to advise mayor and council on the policy related to public works. I see no reason why both things can't be true. But it's a conversation that I'll have with the Human Rights Committee and the subcommittees that have formed under the Human Rights Committee. But given that you're talking about sort of a net new policy, there's nothing to review as of yet. My goal, though, in taking on the chair was to meet with the citizen bodies, not just the committee, obviously, but other citizen bodies and civil bodies that would be interested in human rights in Winnipeg. And so I think both things can be true, and I'm committed to continuing to work with you, Councillor Gilroy, obviously, the groups that have come forward to talk about Transit Plus, and looking at a bit of a work plan in support of the Standing Policy Committee of Public Works, and Councillor Luke's obviously my colleague. So, probably more to do here.
Perfect. And yeah, it would be really nice to know the timeline. They've been working on this for a long time. And just so everyone, it's not really a new policy. We already have criteria. It's really just looking at what's working and what's not working that we need to deep dive into. Yeah.
If I may jump to parks.
Yeah, sure.
So do you both want it at the Standing Policy Committee on Community Services and also a referral to the Budget Working Group, or you sort of landed on the Budget Working Group piece? Because I see, if I may, 32 parks listed. So in some respects, I do like this report. It details really nicely the issues in not all of the parks in the City of Winnipeg, but 32 parks that the public service obviously is aware of and knows. It also lists about 5 FTEs that are required to really do a deeper dive in ensuring knives aren't at the bottom of the slides. Having been a school trustee, you know that used condoms and sometimes things that aren't safe happen on the school play parks too, and well, not all of them, but some. And so it does require more FTEs. So the report, I appreciate the frustration and the outcome, but is there just more to do at the budget working group?
No, I think send it to the budget working group for sure. I feel that, like, I'm on parks now, so I feel like a lot of the times when you're not on APC, you can't really ask, you don't really get responses to questions and stuff when you're asked, right? When you're on a standing policy committee, sometimes it gives you a little bit more leeway. So I'm on that. I did really fight to get on this one because I feel that there are some improvements that we need to do. But definitely, you're correct, Councillor Rollins, and thanks for your words on that. We do need the budget ask at the end of the day. So there's more work to be done, but so send it on to the budget working group, and I will continue my work working with Parks and my chair, the chair, Councillor Santos, on making some improvements
Okay,
in the background.
okay. Thank you,
Okay,
Vice Mayor.
thank you. Thank you, Councillor Roy. Appreciate your time today.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, our next delegation is Joseph Four from the Singing Red Bear Foundation to be heard in support of item 6 of the report of the Standing Policy Committee on Community Services.
Just down that way. Yeah. Good morning, Joseph. Good to see you again.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm here, I know I'm listed as the founder of the Singing Red Bear Foundation and creator of the No Thanks, I'm Good campaign. But today I'm here to speak to the motion of the needle exchange. And I understand after listening to the previous speaker in regards to the debris in the parks that it is causing an issue. But when I first heard about the issue on the news, I approached Councillor Santos and said that it was because it was really focused on the needles. And I think the needles are a big problem, not just in this community, but just about every community in Manitoba. In so much that Swan River Mayor and Council passed a motion to ban the distribution of needles in their communities because they just can't keep up with them. But when you look at the needle exchange program and what the needle exchange program was intended to do, in 2004, when they were starting to get this out, the Center for Addictions and Mental Health stated very clearly that it would not increase the number of needles discarded in communities because a true needle exchange program is 1 for 1. I'm a former addict. I'm 5 years in recovery. I was addicted to heroin. I was an injection user. I'm an open book. As an addict, we think differently. We value things differently. So my paraphernalia kit was golden because I could not use without it. And the needles that I had were golden because I needed them. When I went to go get new needles, I would take my old needles back because I couldn't get new needles without my old needles. That's needle exchange. So somewhere in the past 20 years, we have gone from a needle exchange program to a needle distribution with no regard for collecting. So I really think it's important that the province and harm reduction, because if you look at harm reduction is not just for the addict. Harm reduction has to include the community. And right now, the community is being neglected with the needle distribution program. So we really need to get back to really enforcing the needle exchange, 1 for 1. If I'm an addict, then I know that I can't get clean needles unless I have old needles to bring back. Then those old needles have value to me. I'm going to keep them. And then when I go back to wherever it is, Street Links or who's ever just, part of the needle exchange program, I'm going to give those back, thus decreasing the number of needles discarded in our parks, harming our community. Because God forbid my grandchildren go play in a park, get stuck with a needle. You know, the needle exchange program was first initiated in 1989 because HIV was on the rise. You know, so somewhere along that line, community got lost. And I think it's really important that we take this, because I don't think it should be put on city taxpayers to collect the needles that are distributed by the province of Manitoba. I think that harm reduction and Manitoba harm reduction have to take responsibility for the number of needles that are discarded in our communities. I think discussions have to happen with the province of Manitoba to reinstate a true needle exchange program, one for one. Yes, you know, we want to ensure the safety of users and keeping them alive and making sure that they're safe. What about my granddaughter? What about your granddaughter? You know, users are responsible. Don't sell them short. They're smart. They're manipulative. They know how to get what they want. Trust me, I was one. But what we're proposing for us to pay for the pickup and the cleanup, yes, from listening to the lady, we have some issues in our parks with broken glass and knives and all these other things. But I really don't think that we should be responsible for picking up discarded needles. If we had a true needle exchange program, there would be no discarded needles. So it's frustrating, you know, because we put so much emphasis, and I don't want to use the word coddle, but my wife and I say we coddle the addict quite a bit. You know, we try and coddle them through their use, make it as safe as possible. And I think it's almost time now that we start, you know, putting some responsibility back on them and ensuring that, you know, that they're using safely, yes, but they're also keeping us safe. And that's important, because we can't afford $500,000 to clean up the mess. You know, if you look at the cost of one needle, we'll say 50 cents, and we've distributed, I'm going to say, 1 million needles. The province has paid $500,000 in the giving away to keep addicts safe. I can't speak to the knives and the debris and to the other stuff in the parks, but I really think as a city you have an opportunity to be the first to go back to the province and reinforce the needle exchange program, because the definition given by the Center of Addiction and Mental Health of a needle exchange program, a needle exchange program collects used needles and distributes clean needles and other materials. So we throw that word around, needle exchange, but there is no needle exchange. You know, so I can only speak from my experience. All I have to offer you is my honesty, my integrity, and my life experience. You know, yes, the Singing Red Bear Foundation was formed out of tragedy after losing my son to a fentanyl poisoning, but I'm not here to speak on that today. I'm here to speak on the needle exchange program, and I'm asking Mayor and Council to go back to the province, go back to Manitoba Health and Manitoba Harm Reduction, and ask them to take some responsibility in the cleanup. And if it's funding, then maybe they should supply that funding so that we can employ our citizens to clean up these parks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Nobody could have said it better. We really appreciate your comments today. When I saw this come forward, and with your comments, and then Councillor Eadie and others who are calling on the province to establish a true needle exchange program, I went to his office and said, thank you, Councillor Eadie, for that as well, because I completely support that. So again, thank you very much for your comments today, and really appreciate you being here today as well. Any other questions at all?
I just really want to thank you. It takes a lot of time out of a person's schedule to come down here, to register, to come down here, but it's so impactful to hear what you're saying, your lived experience, and your perspective, and it's just, you're a breath of fresh air. Thank you very much for coming down.
Thank you. Like I said, all I got is my truth, and when I first heard this, I was sitting at home, and I'm saying, why? Like, why are we doing this? You know, yes, we want to keep everybody safe. And when I say everybody, that's inclusive to the community and our citizens. And we need to ask the province to take some responsibility in the mess, because this is just not Winnipeg. So Winnipeg could lead, and then communities like Swan River, The Paw, Brandon, Dauphin could all benefit from enforcing a real, true needle exchange program.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Have a great day. Thank
You
so
too,
much.
sir,
Thank you.
as well, council members.
Okay, our next delegation is David Grant joining us via Zoom to be heard with respect to a number of reports.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Grant. Welcome. You've got 10 minutes, and I know you want to speak to many items, so thank you so much. And
Thank
the
you.
clock starts now.
Thank you. I want to thank the previous delegations for their work. Both those were very informative. On property topic 2, it begins with suspending Rule 10, bracket 3. Once again, your meeting schedule forces violation of procedural rules. Before your governance committee approved the 2025 meeting schedule, I explained that you could avoid those violations by making slight adjustments to these schedules. The content, and we'll see how that works out. The contents of item 2 is pretty much incomprehensible. I would suggest that it fails City Hall's promises of transparency, which are repeated in today's report 3 to EPC. On services report 6, I recently took the time to explain to services how programs in other cities better deal with sharps and how we dealt with them in my lab. I was followed in delegation by a recovered user. He made the same points, but much more powerfully. We've heard those in the previous delegation. We must either bring in program changes or abandon most public spaces for some of these uses, like little kids. I support this solution and the powerful words of your previous delegation. On property topic 1, info delayed on the P&M work. The idea of waiting another 180 days to begin to understand these aspects of the project is strongly counterindicated in the context of today's current schedule. Is there no preliminary information on these topics? Rather than wait 6 more months, all available info should be rushed to you. Absent from this agenda item is the link to the comparison by PNG of all the various means of mitigating the leakage. This delay is bad. How is this critical report not shared with Council? It seems to be a new level of governance failure to delay this report and to commit to spending tens of millions of taxpayer dollars and wasting thousands of hours of traveler time without providing to Council a full report on the alternatives. Making good decisions requires being fully informed. On EPC Report 3, just about everybody who reads this topic, called plain language, understands it to mean clear, simple messaging. Little do they know that at City Hall, this topic can instead mean short but misleading words. Why is there no mention of complete, clear, and honest messaging in the background for item 3? Open data, topic 7. The city is publishing blocks of info. That's good. When someone seeks information related to current City Hall decisions, why is so much of this information not available in searches of the website and by using the FIPA process? When a person goes to the store and finds the needed item is not in stock, being told by staff of the many items they do have that you don't need does not help. Topic 9, discounts for early tax payments. I see that the city is not making the usual promotion program for this. Why is information on this not included in all mailings, such as water bills? Do you want participation to increase? I would think that having more cash on hand is a good thing. If we don't really believe in the program, should it be scrapped? On topic 10, TIF funding. This program is like the city's arts program. It provides huge benefits to the very few with hard to perceive reasons. When the city is nearly out of money, why do we continue to give away so much? Topic 11, construction officer. The delay here is worse than anything I experienced in industry and in Crown Corporation work. Even Hydro, when it needed to find a new chief executive, didn't take that long to find the right person. In the next few months, there is time to refine the requirements. This is another delay. And certainly there are people with experience in construction who are nearing regular retirement and who might want the job. Done right, this person, the construction officer, would be subject to very strict rules, ethics rules, that would carry weight even after they leave city employment. There is merit in this person being a PN, not just a worker in construction, as it now reads. Hopefully, we won't have to wait much longer to see this job filled. And 12, encampment cleanup. I support this delay. 13 days was never going to be enough to summarize and report on a major effort like this. Topic 13. I agree with these two very experienced councillors. Water and wastewater rates should be regulated, and the PUB sure seems like the best way of doing this. Audit 1. While change can be abysmally slow, at least we can feel good that a team of auditors has checked that change is still actually happening. On Public Works, Topic 1. Transit changes. On a positive note, this plan seems to have been laid out logically. It makes very large, radical changes. Odds are that paying customers may be scared away from using transit by these changes. On dissent, one must realize that transit communications have been based on untrue claims for many years. There is no indication that the authors have considered the downside for customers in having to wait for a second bus to complete their trip. Some folks will have longer commute times, that happens, but in trying to emulate larger systems, transit seems to be ignoring the fact that users of bigger systems have few alternatives, fewer than Winnipeggers. Mess with a New York City transit customer, and they still ride the next week, no matter what happened to the previous one. They have no choice. For bigger systems, for many Winnipeg transit customers, on the other hand, if you mess with them, they can carpool or drive the next week instead, for many of them. BRT failed because it takes longer off-peak and fails to take passengers directly to their previous destinations, whether that was along Pembina or downtown. Expect more of your riders to vote with their feet in 2025. Public Works 2, Transit Plus. We had some previous people, we have other people talking on the topic. I want to thank Patrick for explaining this topic at the Public Works meeting. Transit Plus is a service and its users have the option to leave comments. There is an advisory committee. Being ignored by the carrier is a valid concern. And my fellow delegations seem to be saying that this problem is big and cannot be fixed using current rules. And maybe staffing, as Ms. Lukes pointed out, is an issue. Having a volunteer advisory committee sounds like a great idea. And maybe that's in conjunction with the current advisory committee. Public Works Topic 3, movement of goods. The less than truckload industry has no rep in this group. That's the folks who do package delivery and building materials and so on, which are not transport trucks, smaller vehicles. City Hall is harming the LTL industry, less than truckload. Removing lawful loading zones, steps that increase congestion, and letting hijackers run rampant across the cities, all these harm the LTL companies and maybe scare away their employees a bit. And thank you very much for listening. I feel that I should apologize if some feel that I'm working against you. I am not. I spent decades in high-performance corporate orgs making decisions and providing the information needed for others to make decisions. If any of those decisions had been in error, vulnerable people could have been injured or killed. When I see a need, I try to help the team make good decisions. And certainly that's the way I have felt about my participation here. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grant. Appreciate your comments today. I don't know if that's a record, but I think you covered 21 items in about 8.5 minutes by the clock. That's almost as impressive as the Jets record right now. So thank you very much for your comments again. Really appreciate it. Okay. Thank you. All right. Have a good day.
Okay, our last two delegations will be heard with respect to item number 2 of the report of the Standing Policy Committee on Public Works. And so first up is Patrick Stewart from the Independent Living Resource Center, followed by Melissa Graham.
Good morning, Patrick. Good to see you again. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, councillors. My name is Patrick Stewart. I'm here representing the Independent Living Resource Centre. We're a nonprofit organization that provides programs, services, and information for all Manitobans with disabilities. I was thinking this morning about coming to EPC, and I remembered a moment coming here a few years ago. I think it was maybe about 3 or 4 years ago. To talk about Transit Plus, right? That's what often brings us here. And the reason, what brought me here that day was that there was a change in policy for passengers that have something called winter-only service. Sometimes passengers just have service in the winter months when it's difficult to get to bus stops. And the proposal was rather than to have sort of set dates for when winter service would operate. I think it was traditionally October to March, something like that. That it would be sort of done on the fly, depending on the weather, so that we could sort of adjust when that happened, control the resources that are used. And I showed up and said, well, I'll be here in a year, mark my words. Winnipeg's weather is unpredictable. And what we really wanted was for councillors to appreciate that it's when you just sort of turn the switch on and off, who has access and who doesn't have access, it's not just like catching the bus, right? There's a lot of work that goes into people planning their lives, and especially if you're traveling with an attendant, organizing your health care, et cetera, et cetera. And having a fixed date made a lot of sense for people. And sure enough, I was back a year later, and there had been an early October snow, and news stories, and people stuck, and what's happening, and all of this, right? And I'm not here to sort of embarrass anybody with that story. What I'm here to sort of do is to say that there's another storm brewing, and we're here to provide a warning of that. I really appreciate speaking with Councillors Lukes and Rollins and Gilroy over the past couple weeks to sort of explain where we're coming from. And we had a really good feeling in the morning yesterday, last week at the Public Works meeting. What had been proposed was that there would be a report on what we've been talking about today. That we had been hearing a lot of concerns about eligibility criteria, had been hearing from passengers that were seeking accommodations and it wasn't happening for them, and really running up against a system that seemed to be as opaque as a stone once again. After the Ombudsman report, their trust was was really broken. And coming here to council to sort of speak about these things, we've been trying to rebuild trust, but trust is at the core of what we're talking about today. So the report that was requested last week was that the eligibility criteria be looked at. And eligibility is everything. Not just eligible to the service, but having accommodations once your health changes. I spoke yesterday with a woman who is seeking an accommodation, has not been able to get it, and she's told me now that she's going to have double shoulder replacement surgery as a result. And she has a letter from her doctor, and she hasn't been able to get anywhere. So getting concerns like that from the community has sort of set us off on a bit of a mission, trying to figure out what's going on. And during the course of doing our work, we've come up against what I would just only kind of call sensitive information. Sensitive information that is being alluded to here today about turnover, and it can be sort of framed as an HR thing. And once it's an HR thing, we understand that it becomes sort of out of bounds. But the information that we've also received, though, is that HR issue has translated to over 100 people waiting for accommodations. Accommodations that are supposed to be protected based upon human rights. Accommodations that are maybe threatening not just their access to the system, but their safety, their ability to earn an income, their ability to attend their healthcare appointments. So that is the public concern. The information that we've received and what brought us to the Public Works last week was to say, okay, we do need a report, but with what we know, we can't, any report that comes directly from transit is not just going to be looked at, with scrutiny from the community. It's not really going to serve any real purpose. We would be considering them a hostile party writing this. So the request was to have the Human Rights Committee provide some oversight. And we understand that the committee has governance, that there's rules, that there's ways that these things are done. that the committee can do certain things and not do other things, and that motions have to include certain things and not other things. And when we come here, we do try to do our best to sort of provide not just the information, but maybe what the relevant questions are. But I want to just choose my words really carefully. We're trying to help right now. We're trying to give the city an opportunity to correct something that seems to be rotten. We fortunately live in a province where there are other places to go. It's not just City Hall. The consumers that come to us because they've run out of options. There's nowhere for them to bring their concerns. And that's kind of how we felt with what we're dealing with. There's nobody for us to just contact. There's no number for us to call within the city. So we reach out to councillors and we try to explain it. And we lean upon our political leadership to come up with the motion, to come up with the plan. We can describe what it looks like and what we're hearing, but we don't work here. We don't know what all the rules are. We don't know how to craft the thing in a particular way to get it done. But I think anybody who has heard what we're dealing with and how we're trying to approach this in a responsible way, I think would quickly understand that not just the status quo it can't be maintained any longer, but that the city has a real opportunity here to maybe get in the driver's seat and fix something that was maybe baked in a long time ago, and the time has come for that. So that's my presentation, and I'm happy to receive any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Any questions at all? Councillor Lukes.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for coming to Public Works Committee and for coming here today so that the EPC members could hear what you're, presenting. So yes, the Human Rights Committee doesn't really do the deep dive into issues that you're bringing up. It's just, that's not the structure of that committee, but that doesn't mean we can't do that in Public Works. So Councillor Gilroy was really wanting to have community engagement along with the public service with Transit Plus. How do you feel about that? Like if we had some meetings at the Transit Plus Advisory Committee maybe, where we could have really good, open, frank discussions. I would attend, members of the Public Works Committee, whoever would attend, with the Transit Plus staff and representatives from the community. How do you feel about that?
I don't think that would work.
You don't think that would work?
No.
So are you looking maybe for an external, like you had indicated that?
Sorry, I'll let you finish your question. I didn't
Okay,
mean to
so
interrupt.
you had indicated that the transit report would not be useful, that it would sort of be a hostile report.
Yes.
So you're feeling maybe like an outside group would be better to look into the issues that you're dealing with?
Yes, an outside group would be appropriate probably to do an investigation of some sort. Again, what we're offering is the city an opportunity to deal with this themselves,
Right.
and for you guys to come up with a way to do that. Whether we need to be solutions-based, of course. What we're talking about is something that's very foundational.
Yeah.
And I know when we sort of stand here and maybe wax poetic about human rights and things like that, it can be a little lost, but we're talking about specific people. And we're not talking about creating anything from scratch. The Manitoba Human Rights Code touches every aspect of what's provided, because not just every government body, but really everybody has a responsibility, a legal obligation to make reasonable accommodations. And when those accommodations are denied, there's a framework. They can be denied because there's a demonstrated safety problem, or there's a demonstrated, that it would essentially bankrupt an organization. Like that framework is there, right?
What's your appeal avenue if you're not pleased with the accommodation that Transit Plus says?
Well, there's an appeal process for eligibility, but people that I have been speaking with, though, have been waiting 6 months just for an assessment to happen, so there's nothing to appeal.
Right. Okay, I hear you. Okay.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And I'm wondering, appreciate a couple times, Mr. Stewart, you did note the fact that, you'd like to see the city, give the opportunity for the city to kind of correct this themselves. And I'm wondering if you would support, because there's HR involved here, if you would support what has been floated earlier, is having our interim CAO take a good look at this as part of the process right now to see what we could, if there's anything that needs to be corrected, how it could be corrected internally first, just to address the matter and just have he and, have a good kind of review of what's going on at this point as a starting point?
I think a review of the starting point is a really good idea.
Okay.
What we want to avoid and why we were very surprised with what happened last week is that we had sort of had conversations that there was a good fit with the Human Rights Committee of Council. And essentially what happened is, we left, we went home. I loaded this up on YouTube the next day because I was feeling, that everything had kind of gone well. And then when I watched the presentation from Transit, the request was basically, oh, well, we were going to do this anyhow. Can it be folded into the annual report? Okay. And then all of the, comments and this very, robust conversation that we seem to have about human rights in the morning, poof, vanished. Further, it was expressed that the assessment process has been outsourced, which is, I don't know, complete news to anybody that I've spoken to. So the timeline is very suspect that we sort of have this problem. We're hearing about these turnovers. We're hearing about these people not getting accommodations and, there being a connection between this, and then suddenly it's outsourced and the problem's gone away. Well, it doesn't take anybody who does who looks at this stuff for a living to kind of connect those dots. And that's why we're just so suspect about, there needs to be some oversight for sure. And we leave it to you to maybe come up with what that looks like.
Thank you. Yeah, the CAO has authority that certainly the Human Rights Committee doesn't have. So I'm just thinking, let's just put part of it into his hands here for an analysis, first of all, to see as a starting point. So thank you very much. Appreciate your presentation today.
You're welcome.
Councillor Rollins, question?
The Human Rights Committee can work with city departments, right? As we will work with community organizations. So you were on my list to meet with soon after last Wednesday when I caught the ball from the council, right? I would have met with you anyway. I would have met with the Manitoba League for People with Disabilities, right? I would have met with you anyways. And then heard some of your priorities, right? This likely maybe being one of them. But the Human Rights Council, they serve as an advisory body and for sure has access and disabilities, age-friendly and more, folks that have put up their hand and said, I will serve the city, right? So I really wanted to get in touch with them first. And the reason why I know that it's an advisory body is that what we're talking about isn't anything that I can package up for them and have them read and then advise on, because we're both talking about something that is in situ, something that might need to be changed to what, right? So both things can be true. Happy to meet with you, and then happy to think about this more as both standing policy committee work and work that, Winnipeggers that have raised their hands wanting to be on this thing called the Human Rights Committee of Council might obviously be interested in. So I think there's a sequencing issue, and the path forward is embedded in the motion that we have before us today. But let's reconvene in a meeting to look at the access and disability work that you have ambitions for the Human Rights Committee of Council. And it's something that, I'll be talking to my colleagues with, talking to public servants on, separate and apart from what the Public Works and Mayor has indicated is now work on the desk of the CAO, if that sounds all right for today.
Sounds all right for today, and thanks very much, Sherry and I, for speaking yesterday. I know all of this was very short notice for you.
Yeah.
Appreciate your attention.
Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, our next delegation on the same matter is Melissa Graham, Executive Director of MLPD.
Good morning, Melissa. Welcome. Thank you for your patience and kind of waiting your turn here. Appreciate that.
Good morning. I just want to check, am I getting picked up okay by the mic here?
Yep, we can hear you. Good.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Melissa Graham. I'm the Executive Director of the Manitoba League of Persons with Disabilities. Good morning, Mr. Mayor and councillors. So yes, as Patrick alluded to, there are a group of us community organizations that receive some sensitive information regarding Transit Plus. Patrick brought this information to me. I gathered what we call our usual suspects of community organizations together. We brought this together as a group and work with counselors to see what we could do. We are a group of community organizations that are concerned not just because of this information we received, but we've been kind of feeling like there's something going on for a while within Transit Plus. For myself, I don't often, so the Manitoba League of Persons with Disabilities, we were one of the organizations that were essential in the founding of Transit Plus. It began as a service that was led and designed by community, and for us, that's always very essential to how it operates. We have members of our staff and our council on the PAC. We also have representatives on the Accessibility Advisory Committee and Human Rights Committee. So we're very well in tune with what's going on with Transit Plus, but also how that operates within the city process. So for me, I don't often deal with Transit Plus issues directly as executive director, but sometimes I have to, because to be quite frank with you, compared to we spend a lot of our time helping people navigate services like EIA, housing, even things like getting someone's employer to provide them with an accessible parking space. With all the services that we help people navigate, Transit Plus is by far the most difficult. Even when I'm writing a letter on formal letterhead signed by the executive director, it is questioned why we are there acting on a person's behalf when I can provide clear documentation to that person's consent. So from that perspective, I know as an ED that there are some things that need to change here as far as the perspective we take with Transit Plus. And it's like, as Councillor Luke knows, I often allude to the fact that I'm from Ontario, and don't hold that against me, but I've been involved in transit issues for a long time. I used to sit on the Accessibility Advisory Committee for the City of Toronto. I'm very familiar with how these things work, and it's alarming to me. It should be the canary in the coal mine that we, as lived experience organizations that have been around for a really long time, are having such difficulty even trying to access information on behalf of our community. There's something wrong. And this information that we received, I think, highlighted that for us. I know that it was alluded that maybe the PAC could be a support here. I have great respect for the members of our community that sit on that PAC, but to be frank and honest with you, that agenda is set by Transit Plus. Meetings are canceled and scheduled by Transit Plus at times that work for them. And, sometimes there's more Transit Plus representatives in those meetings than there are people from community. So with all due respect to the people that are there, very smart people, some of which also sit on the Accessibility Advisory Committee, it's not that I don't think that those folks could do that work, it's that it's not an avenue that's conducive to it because they're not provided the opportunity to ask those questions in a way that would be friendly. It's really difficult to be a community member sitting in a virtual meeting with, Teresa Platt and other heads of Transit Plus when you're also maybe using the service yourself and, only getting that information through Transit Plus. Like, the information that's received is very limited. The letter we wrote to Transit Plus was brought to the PAC without any context for why it was there when we initially reached out to Transit Plus. So I list all these things as an example. Sorry, I feel like I'm going in circles a bit. One of the things I wanted to say about my experience and my time on that Accessibility Advisory Committee in Toronto, I know we're not Toronto, but I have seen where lived experience can provide direct and informed information to a city councillor without actually having any enforcement power, but it's still useful. And I'll give you a really good story. So as you know, Ontario, like Manitoba, has accessibility standards. And in Ontario, they're trying to get around those standards a lot right now because they're looking at a 2025 deadline, and that looks really scary. So when I was sitting on that committee, the TTC is responsible for what they call Wheel-Trans. And Wheel-Trans in Toronto is our Transit Plus. And they decided to come to our committee as the last stop and say, we're not going to be able to make our 2025 25 commitments. Can you sign off on this? So we can then tell council that we can't meet our commitments and that'll be okay. And we had the power in that committee to say no. We had the committee to say, no, you have to go back and try again and show you've done everything you could to meet those commitments. What we're asking for here is to have that lived experience voice brought in again. As you've seen, I think from Patrick's and my delegation, having that lived experience voice, that understanding of how these systems impact our community is valuable to you as well as to the workings of Transit Plus. Sorry, I feel like I made a really rambly presentation today. I just want to make one more point. This information we received last week about the OTs being contracted out, I want to point out to you why, for me and for Patrick, that information was quite alarming. Because I think if you're not a person with lived experience, you may not understand that. I'm a social worker by background, right? Social workers, OTs, physiotherapists, they're all given very similar training when it comes to disability community, right? And it's something that makes me a little uncomfortable about my Master's of Social Work degree that sits in my closet. The way that social workers and other folks are taught about disability is that we don't know what we need. We need experts coming into our lives to telling us what's best for us. And, you know, I understand that professionals have to have some oversight here, but when we don't even know who these people are, when our city has no control over the people that are making decisions that impact everyone, those day-to-day lives of folks, like, I'll just end on this point. I was very involved last year in an issue over at Willems Lane with folks that were being told they were going to have to walk a football field and a half away to access Transit Plus services. And there was a very powerful young woman who was leading this issue in her building, bringing her neighbors together, doing great work. And she brought us in to essentially say, I need some help because we've been working with Transit Plus for months and we're not getting anywhere. We did that work. It was a long process. It took like 6 months, but eventually that building got everything they were asking for. And then the system that Transit Plus used to get people their rides changed. And all of that information that those tenants had worked so very hard to get on their files was now no longer available to the drivers. And some of those tenants were having to work over again to get that information back on. On top of that, there's no construction in their building and some other issues. But that very passionate woman who worked so hard, I was contacting her just a couple of weeks ago, see how she's doing. And she's like, I'm sorry, Melissa, I can't fight this anymore. It's too tough for me to keep fighting this for my community. If we burn her out in a system that's supposed to work for community, then clearly we're doing something not right. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Melissa. You were not rambling at all. You were very clear. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I know probably my colleagues maybe have a question. I just have one. If, you know, as our interim CEO is kind of going through this and looking at this, would you be available if he needed to reach out or his office needed to reach out to you either through email or phone call or anything like that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Any other questions at all? Councilor Lukes.
And I hear you in regards to the Transit Plus Advisory Committee meetings, but I still would like to have a meeting with some of the colleagues just to come and sit there and to ask questions and.
Yeah, like I said, I think there are very good people that represent our community on those meetings, but those very good people have also come to me and said it's not really an avenue we can bring these things up.
Yeah.
What do we do with that?
Okay, well, we'll work with the CAO here and move things along for sure.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Melissa. Great.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
All right, thank you very much. I believe that's our last delegate for the morning. We will want to thank all the delegations for their participation in today's EPC meeting. All right, moving into our reports. Item number 1 is the monthly update on supportive housing, addiction, and social action indicators. There's an attachment there as well. I'm going to turn it over to our CAO, or interim CAO at this time, Don't know if you were highlighting it, Mr. Armbruster, or
Thank you.
someone
Richard
else?
Mai from our Housing Accelerator Fund, or Moira Gear. Coming down.
I saw Richard was here, Mr. Mahi was here a moment ago, but, okay. No problem.
As I'm transitioning. some of
Welcome,
my
Ms. Gear.
stuff,
Thank
so-
you very much. Appreciate that.
Great, so, yeah, so the stats for this month, we've, total to date, we've got over 12,000 development applications, either permits approved or applications approved. And to date, there's 234 of those units. So I think the short message from the monthly update is that the challenge, Mr. Mayor, that you threw out to the public service earlier this year with the 8,000 units by November, we have surpassed that by quite a large amount. So, and I think it's really encouraging. Also in your message is that every department is a housing department, and we've really seen that come together as a public service. So credit to all the public service staff that have made this happen.
That's great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Yeah, and someone asked me, was that a one-year goal? Well, no, it's it's an ongoing, obviously, goal to that all departments continue through the coming years and forever, see themselves as housing departments. So
Yeah.
appreciate the effort that has been made. In speaking with those that are developing, some have said they're watching for interest rates before they put shovels in the ground. Well, interest rates are heading in the right direction, so really hoping that 2025 is a construction season that is full of activity with development happening all across the city as we continue to see more housing being built. And so, thank you. Mr. Mahi, how are you?
Very good, thanks.
Good to see you. Thank you. Any other questions on this? Councillor Rollins.
Mr. Mayor, Richard Mahi is here. If my only question, and I'll move the motion and get it in order, but my only question is, does Mr. Mahi have anything to add to the briefing?
Just that a lot of good work's been going into the program, and the amount of development applications we've been getting bodes very well for downstream building permits.
Okay. Well, with that, I'll move the monthly update on supportive housing, addiction, and social action indicators, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. It is moved. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item number 2, thank you both. Monthly update on programming activities for Winnipeg 150.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, for the next 3 items, Felicia Wiltshire is here, Manager of Customer Service Communications in the CAO's office.
Good morning, Ms. Wiltshire. Good to see you today.
Morning. Few quick updates on Winnipeg 150. So as of the 31st of October, we had officially handed out 150 medals and planted 150 new trees in every ward across the city to honor remarkable residents who were doing outstanding things in our community. We also announced earlier today, and you met yesterday, Mr. Mayor, I understand, with 4 arts groups to let them know the conclusion of the Winnipeg 150 Mayor's Ball. And we had more than 700 people join us at that event, and together we raised over $80,000, which was split equally between the 4 performing arts groups, which is the Royal Winnipeg Ballet, the Royal Manitoba Theatre Centre, the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra, and the Manitoba Opera. Upcoming, in recognition of Winnipeg 150, the City of Winnipeg has been selected as the honorary Grand Marshals for the upcoming Santa Claus Parade, which is taking place this Saturday. The Mayor will be leading off the parade, and we will also have floats from Winnipeg Transit, Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service, Public Works, the Winnipeg Police Service, and Community Services. Later this month, we are also going to be hosting a Winnipeg 150 hockey game where elected officials and public servants from the City of Winnipeg will take on elected officials and public servants from the province of Manitoba. The game will take place on November 30th, and it will be held at Gateway Arena. And we will be releasing more information on the game next week, including information on how members of the public can watch this friendly competition take place. I think, as I mentioned last month, but just as a reminder, we're continuing our Winnipeg 150 partnerships with local sports teams. So on Tuesday, November 19th, it will be Winnipeg 150 Day at the Winnipeg Jets game, and on December 22nd, it will be Winnipeg 150 Day at the Manitoba Moose game. And that concludes my update for today.
Thank you so much. Yeah, a lot of activity happening. I was at an event the other day with the Premier, and we were just waiting for the event to start, and he said, they're really looking forward to the hockey game. He said that the province has booked some ice time for practice. Oh man, you guys are really serious here, so they're taking this seriously. I do want to just acknowledge as well, thank all councillors for identifying individuals within your respective wards to nominate and receive the medals and the trees. And when I talk to those folks who have been recipients and acknowledged, they like the medals, they love the trees. They're really, really thrilled that they have their own tree. That's my tree, and I'm going to come back to that tree on a regular basis. So kudos to everybody who had any part to play, including our forestry department, in establishing all of that programming and the trees as well. I think it's great. And yeah, I will just say, excuse me, on Santa Claus Parade, hopefully everyone can come out and attend, bring your families and friends to walk in the parade on Saturday. And then finally, yeah, the Royal Winnipeg Ballet, the Manitoba Opera, the Royal Manitoba Theatre Centre, and the Symphony Orchestra. I did meet with them yesterday in my office, excuse me, and informed them that each of them are getting $20,000 because of the generosity of the sponsors and the attendees to the Winnipeg 150 Mayor's Ball. They were thrilled, and so thank you to everybody who supported in any way. That was kind of a fun little message to be able to deliver to those outstanding arts groups. So thank you very much. Any other comments? Excuse me.
My gratitude to Felicia
Nope.
Wilshire.
Could we just get Councillor Rollins?
Sorry.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
I just wanted to extend my gratitude to Felicia Wilshire, sorry, I know your name, your team, Lisa Blake, you know, the 150 medals you watched through the mayor, you know, Felicia watched as I experienced all range of emotions at the mic, handing out the 150 medals. It cumulatively, as you read out the service, just kept hitting me in waves. And by the time I got to the last medal, I was, you know, choking back tears at the depth and breadth of the service to Winnipeg. And I, you know, experienced a full range of emotions at work, like everyone else. But it was those moments, the words that Felicia's team helped craft, the attention to detail on the level of service. It was just wonderful work, and I wanted to extend that through you, Mr. Mayor. The party continues into the new year with events in the Fort Rouge, Fort Garry ward, and an album we plan to launch in January at the Park Theatre. So I think the party needs to continue, Mr. Mayor. And so we're looking at inviting members of council, obviously, to listen to the recording and the album we're doing, but also an event into the new year, because I think the party has to continue.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Any other comments at all? Okay, no. Thank you again so much. Appreciate it. Item number 3 is the plain language performance indicators. Oh, we need a motion on that, don't we? I apologize. A motion then to receive this. Thank you, Councillor Santos. Receive his information. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Councillor Lukes agrees. Anyone else agree? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right. Item number 3, plain language key performance indicators.
Meet with the department. This is on me. I'd like to just extend it for another 30 days, if that's okay, and I'll have a chance to meet with the department and talk about some of the concerns and opportunities.
Okay, motion on 30-day layover. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 4, 2018 to 2022 annual report on French language services. Councillor Duncan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, city
having some difficulty being able to recruit and maintain French-speaking public service members. However, the report identifies some ways that we may be able to do a better job at recruiting and retaining. Winnipeg Public Service recommendation here is to be received as information and referred to the Minister of Municipal Relations in accordance with Part 9 of the City of Winnipeg Charter. And recommendation number 2 as well, I'd like to move the Winnipeg Public Service recommendation.
Thank you. Maybe I'll appreciate that motion. Maybe I'll just comment on it. I do appreciate that the departments are working to find different ways to increase French services in French, and certainly to retain staff as well. And so the problem has been identified. We do have a legislative obligation here that we need to continue to improve. And so I think the next report is going to be really, really critical to see how the departments are doing on reaching really the goals that they have to increase the retention of bilingual employees and make sure that services increasingly are provided or available to residents in French. So again, so with that, then we'll call the question on the motion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to item number 5, Indigenous Youth Strategy, Oshi Anishinaabe Niginayak 2024-2027 Grant Funding Amendment. Councillor Bawadi, want to speak to this, please?
Thank you. Yes, it'd be my pleasure to move the administrative recommendation.
Okay, it's clearly laid out here, what's being done. So any questions? Councillor Rollins, comment, question?
Yeah, I see Cecil Svensson in the gallery. I'm wondering if we could just hear a brief overview.
Sure. Call upon Mr. Svensson to make his way down, please. Thank you. He may be available to speak to item 6 as well if necessary, so. Oh, good. And Tracy Chickbala. Good. Good morning to both of you. Welcome. Good to see you.
Morning.
I've asked Tracy Chickbala from my office to
Yes.
come down to help me to speak to this.
Good. Thank you both. Do you have a specific question then, Councillor Rollins, related to item number 5? We just want to hear the highlights of what's happening here.
Yeah, both the highlights and then, the recommendations, if just to brief. Highlights and brief.
So the city has a requirement prior to entering into a funding agreement with a grant recipient that must be satisfied in this particular grant recipient. Although we would love to invest this money with them, we're unable to satisfy that requirement after 6 to 7 months. So we certainly wanted to find a remedy to not hold that money and to get it into the community, which is what our recommendation is based on. And because these 6 OAN grant recipients that are currently have a funding agreement came in with a lot of bigger asks funding-wise than we were able to provide. So we thought evenly distributing it across the existing 6 grant recipients was the most practical.
With respect, just to follow up, with respect to the Oshkosh Anishinaabe and the, number of grants you receive, can you give me an idea of the scope you mean in terms of the number of asks? The recommendation is straightforward. I think Councillor Bawadi is prepared to move it today, but can you give me an idea of the scope of the asks relative to the dollar amount?
Yeah, we received a total funding request from Indigenous-led organizations in Winnipeg of $10.6 million, and IRD had tried to get that into the budget process, but it was denied.
And then the relative spend is
900,000.
Yeah. Okay. And then, do you have the 10.6 million captured anywhere in terms of the asks? And in terms of, you know, getting it into the budget, you know, did you just forward the whole kit and caboodle, or was there particular ones that you wanted to lean into for recommendation in theory?
Yeah, we had two sets there. One that would have satisfied the full asks of the current 7 grant recipients, and then the additional new funding agreements was a separate group of grants.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
Okay. Thank you. Has Fearless RTW, did they change their name?
They did.
Okay. And what's the new name?
Well,
Do you remember?
no.
Okay, because I don't either. So I just remember, I think they changed their name, so, okay, I don't remember either, so we'll look that up, but obviously this was written probably prior to their name change. So-
Yes.
So thank you very much, I appreciate that. Okay. All right, call the question then on this matter. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Item number 6, perhaps we just wait 1 second here. We'll just see if there's any questions on item number 6, which is the report related to the journey of reconciliation. And just see if there's any questions. I guess someone want to move the matter? Councillor Rollins,
Yes.
first of all?
You know, pretty much, you know, rinse and repeat of the previous question. Just can you provide some highlights? I note in the report there is both, you know, opportunities and challenges identified. Really appreciate that. And, you know, absolutely prepared to move the report.
Okay.
But could we, if we could have, oh, I see. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay. How are
Good to see you. Good to see you. I'm doing well, thank you. All right, any questions at all?
If we could get just a summary highlight on the report, and then prepared to move.
Okay.
Yeah, so been a busy year. The reporting period for this report is October 1st, 2023 to September 30th, 2024. In that period, we celebrated the official renaming of Abinogi Mikana, which saw a lot of you folks in attendance. We had over 150 participants at that event, and received a lot of really good feedback from community, the elders we've been working with, and media coverage, so that was great. Earlier, or I guess late last year, we also had the Accord Conference, which had over 200 Accord partners in attendance, a final report that offered 50 strategic recommendations and over 200 actionable directives. So that's something that my colleague Tracy is working on, how we can implement that. And I think kind of notably, we received over 145 unique requests from other city departments to look at how we can support actioning the organization's journey of reconciliation commitments. And so those asks are kind of on top of our key portfolios of welcoming Winnipeg, Winnipeg's Indigenous Accord, Oshkosh, Anishinaabe, Naganiwak, the city's Indigenous Youth Strategy, and looking at implementing the 231 calls for justice and the National Action Plan on MMIWG. So, yeah, busy.
Busy. If it's not already included, would you be able to circulate if there's another standalone, the recommendations from the Accord Conference, those standalone recommendations, would I be able to have them in an email?
I think so. I haven't seen the final report.
Okay.
That's been with Tracy, but
Okay.
I believe it's something that we could likely get to you.
Okay, perfect. Those are my questions. Prepared to move.
I could just, I just want to add to what Danielle had shared. All of this was done in the midst of what is can be described as an MMIWG crisis in our community with the trial. I won't say the name of the person, the serial killer, at the request of families. But our unit has been strongly, like most agencies and people who build trust in the community, and I'm so proud of my unit for building that trust, have been relied upon heavily by the community to support them through this process. And I just wanted to acknowledge that and acknowledge the trust building and the hard work of my staff on the record.
I just want to, Danielle and Cecil and your entire team, want to thank you. And Cecil, I'm really glad that you mentioned that. Life moves fast, and we can, think that where things are behind. When we stop and take a look at what all your team has been part of over the last, 12, 16, 24 months, it is significant. So I want to affirm that and echo your comments and appreciation for the work that you and your members have done with community, time and time again. And so, so there's no playbook for that, right? There's, it's remarkable. So thank you so much. And right now, there's dialogue on trying to find ways to improve Welcome Winnipeg. We want, personally, I'm committed to finding ways to make that better for everybody and successful, right? And so I know we can collectively grow there and so, and improve. So there's, dialogue happening right now on that as well. So, Councillor Rollins, did you have another comment you were going to?
Oh, I just see Jessica Paley with my very bad 50-year-old eyes in the gallery. And when Mr. Spenson was mentioning, the work undertaken this year, the work undertaken in the middle of, a human rights crisis, I just was reminded of, the very close work that Jessica does and that I want to acknowledge, no less important than the rest of the IRD team, including Cecil and Danielle. It just so happens that I'm linked sometimes at the hip to Jessica Paley, who not only works day in, day out with community, but also presents to the MMIWG course of Sandra Delarond each and every year, or even twice a year, I think, depending on the delivery of that course, which is so appreciated on the delivery of the calls to justice and the implementation on the City of Winnipeg. So I think that that's really critical work. It is overwhelming sometimes to think of the work that IRD is engaged in, and the the political climate in which they're engaging. And so I'm hoping that we all see a role in easing their burden and distributing it amongst all the city departments in a way that I think the call to action 57 compels us to do. But grateful for their work here today and willing to move.
Thank you. My final comment is just to acknowledge again the work the team did on with the Royal Aviation Museum Western Canada and the Bunabonabee, we're going to get it right, Bunabonabee Cree Nation community members as well, and on establishing that kind of memorial for the 1972 plane crash. And it was a really good event. I was really impressed to see the sheer number of community members from Bunabonabee that had made their way to Winnipeg for that ceremony. And it was, I'll just say it because I don't know if everybody caught it, but it was really, IRD played a key role in kind of facilitating that and working to make sure that happened. And it was really neat to see the pilot's family and community members connect in a way that probably they never had. And I know the pilot's family who'd kind of come in from, I think, mostly Western Canada, I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I heard stories after that they were invited back to the hotel where many community members were staying, and it was just kind of a, meeting together and an embrace and eating together, feasting together, and it was a really a powerful moment, I think, of healing and connecting after all these years. So it was a beautiful. It turned out to be a very, very beautiful event. So thank you. Good. Okay, thank you both. All right, motion by Councillor Rollins then to receive this matter. All those in favor, aye. Opposed, carried. Thank you. Councillor Lukes, item 7, 2024 open data and annual report.
Sure, I'd like to move that this report be received as information. I don't have any questions on it, but this is all good.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. I wonder, Councillor Bawadi, if we could do items 8, 9, and 10 together?
You bet. So moved.
All those in favor, aye. Opposed, carried. Item 11, Councillor Duncan, Chief Construction Officer.
Almost at the finish line, looking for a layover of 60 days here.
Okay, maybe thank you, that's the motion. Maybe I'm wondering if Mr. Interim CEO can give us a bit of an update on how things are going. We are going to, we do have the motion here to extend layover for 60 days, but just wonder if you can give us any update on status, things there.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm pleased to give an update through you to EPC, members of EPC, that the selection committee is well underway with the recruitment. The posting is completed. We start our first round of interviews next week. We have a strong field of applicants, and pending 1 or 2 rounds of interviews, look forward to coming back with a successful nominee. We'd like to thank Human Resources for their support with that, as well as Councillors Dobson, Councillor Mays, and Councillor, my name is, I'm drawing a blank here, the selection committee is appointed by Councillor together with your office, and I'm thankful that we're working together, and look forward to coming back with a name prior to the extension that's being granted to us.
Great. Okay. Motion then for a 60-day layover. All those in favor? Extension, I should say, not layover, but extension.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Councillor Schreier, if I could interject.
Councillor
My
Schreier, all right.
apologies. How could I forget?
Thank you. Item 12, update on encampment cleanup pilot. I think we're looking for a layover here of 60 days as well. Councillor Santos?
I'm looking forward to reading that report, motion that I put forward a couple months ago, so looking forward to that. So I'll move an extension of up to 60 days be granted.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 13, legislative changes, Public Utilities Board regulation. Councillor Duncan.
Just having a amending motion circulating here. Give my colleagues a moment to have a look.
While it's being distributed, if you want to read any of it, I'm going to just grab a glass of water.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate the motion that came forward by 2 of our council colleagues there at the last council meeting. However, with the work that's going on between the different levels of government to do with the North End water treatment plant and several other complex parts of potentially looking at a public utilities board model for water and waste, I think it's pertinent that we do our due diligence, and that's why this request looks at, in accordance with section 16.4 of the procedural bylaw, number 50, 2007, an extension of time of 180 days be granted for the Executive Policy Committee to submit a recommendation on the council motion dated October 24th, 2020, and that all proper officers of the City of Winnipeg be authorized to do all things necessary to implement the intent of the foregoing.
Okay, motion to lay this matter over. 180 days, extension of time. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 14, establishment of tri-level agreement, inter-city revitalization. We heard our delegate this morning, Councillor Gilroy, open to us receiving this as information. I have committed through my office to work with Councillor Gilroy and Councillor Eadie on the priorities that they've spelled out in this initiative. So, Councillor Santos, you willing to move that matter as information?
Sure, I'll move it to receive it as information.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 15, rezoning 800 Crescent Drive, DAZ 211-2024. Councillor Rollins.
So moved.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item 16, negotiation City of Winnipeg and United Firefighters of Winnipeg Local 867 of the International Association of Firefighters. Councillor Brawadi.
Thank you. Congratulations to our staff for negotiating this agreement, and I'll move the public service recommendation.
Yeah, I do appreciate that. I do want to echo your comments. Councillor Brody, acknowledge our labor relations staff for their work, and the leadership of UFFW Local 867 for their efforts as well. Negotiations take many, many months. There's a lot of dialogue, a lot of back and forth, a lot of trying to find a path that reflects an agreement, the settlement that is both fair to employees and manageable for citizens of Winnipeg as well, and taxpayers. So appreciate the effort being made here. I'll be supporting this. Councillor Rollins?
I want to just also echo some of the good things, and also some of the good things that, show a very big collaboration between the United Firefighters of Winnipeg and the city with respect to a, shared priority. And you can see that within this agreement, and some priorities that are chosen within it that really delivers results for Winnipeggers. And I want to thank our team, our labor relations team, and I also want to thank the United Firefighters of Winnipeg, because in this agreement you can really see some critical issues are worked out that are critically important to the city of Winnipeg, not only just the fire service, but the city of Winnipeg, and I appreciate it. I encourage people to read it. It's critical work at this point in time in our city's history, but there's a lot in here that really resonates with the issues that the whole of the city has been dealing with.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Councillor Brody, item 1 of the Audit Committee, implementation of audit report recommendations 2024.
Thank you. I'll move that we receive the Q3 report.
Any questions, comments? Our auditor is here. No? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, there is no report from the Standing Policy Committee on Water, Waste, and Environment. Moving on then to the Standing Policy Committee on Community Services, report dated November 4th, 2024. Councillor Santos.
Move items, reports 1 through 6 to be.
Okay, 1 through 6, it is moved. I will thank you. I'll just say before I call the question, I'll just say certainly I look forward to continued discussions with Councillor Gilroy related to the needle and debris cleanup in parks as well. There's more work to do there, but look forward to the ongoing discussions and work that has to happen. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, moving on then to the Standing Policy Committee on Public Works dated November 7th, 2024. Councillor Lukes.
Sure. Number 1's a very exciting report, but I'll speak more to it at the council meeting. It's about the communication plan for our transit changeover. So for now, I'll move item 1 and 3, which is an extension of time.
Okay, I'll call the question on 1 and 3. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item number 2,
And
Councillor
for
Lukes.
item number 2, we've heard from community, which I really appreciate them coming out. It takes time. It's an effort to come out to speak to us, but I'm glad everyone here at EPC has heard the concerns. I will be working with Transit Plus on this, and we will get a report back. I know that the committee, or that the representations weren't overly crazy about that, but we're going to get the report back anyways. But I'm glad to hear that our CAO will be doing further discussions with the Transit Department and with Ms. Graham too. And I know that anyone that reaches out to you, you'll work with them on that. It does sound like there's some HR issues, but it also sounds like there needs to be better communication and clarity on eligibility criteria and such. So I'm glad the CAO will be working on this with us. So I will move this recommendation as it stands in the report.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Is that instruction through us through the CEO good enough, or do you want to?
Yeah, I think a verbal
align?
instruction is fine. It's on the record, it's fine. We've made an invitation offer to discuss this with you too, with the delegation. So I think a verbal report, or a verbal request is fine.
Instruction is, okay.
You heard that,
me
right?
see.
So if you heard it, that's good.
Yes, I'm honored and happy to follow up on that. so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, it's understood then.
All right.
With that verbal kind of note, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Addendum report of the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development dated November 8th, 2024. Councillor Rollins, 10 items.
Yes, all 10 items I'm willing to move in omnibus fashion. I do want to point out, though, when it comes to the first item on Portage and Main intersection at the grade opening and decommissioning, there was more time requested on the record, and the committee approved that more time. That is indeed to scope the work. And so while, delegations today might have been, somewhat confused on, the availability of information, there's a lot of transparent information on the record on this, a lot of transparent information on the motion that council set out on Portage and Main intersection. And it was always the desire that we would then rescope it with the at-grade opening and then look at the underground. The Public Services asked for more time, and we granted them that, but it is to make sure that we're not throwing money out the door, to be curt about it, and to really scope that work. And I think it's very important as a local downtown councillor to say that nothing is coming fast for that underground, and the decommissioning of the concourse is not happening today, tomorrow, the next day, indeed not 180 days till we even understand the scope and then look at the budget and the timeline. So wanted to put those words on the record. Good meeting with a new committee. I can move 1 to 10, so moved.
Thank you for your comments on item 1. It is moved. Items 1 to 10. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right. Moving on now to the Standing Policy Committee on Finance and Economic Development. There is no report. And then finally, the addendum report of the Governance Committee on Council dated November 12th, 2024. Councillor Lukes, would you move this matter, please?
I will. I'd like to move.
Items.
Okay, just hold on here. I was derailed here. What item are we on? Oh, the last one, the Governance Committee, right. The Governance Committee. All right, I'd like to move items 1, 2, and 3.
Just to be clear on item 1, moving this to be received as information.
As information, correct?
Okay.
Correct. And number 3 is information also.
Pardon me?
Okay.
What your, okay, let's just be clear here. So this was governance motion to
Yeah.
install the
Yes.
beverage and snack vending machines? Okay, all right.
Information.
Information or concurring with governance? I would concur. I think the motion was it was concurring with governance. On that item?
Okay. Just give me
It's
a minute
installing
here.
vending,
Right,
beverage and
right.
snack vending
Okay,
machines.
we're
lower
just
level.
talking about that and not the parking though, right? Okay. Because we're not supportive of free parking. So this is just for the vending machines. Okay.
Yeah.
So concur with the motion from committee.
Okay, item number
Okay.
1, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item number 2,
Item number 2 is to concur with the information from committee.
all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Yes, that was a good one. And
Item-
item number 3 is community committee is to receive his information.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
sorry about
Thank
that.
you. Councillor Rollins, would you move adjournment, please?
Okay.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. We are adjourned.